holiday response video. At least I know those are horrible words, but it needs to be done, I think. I think it's important. Determinism rules out chance of probabilistic happenings. Probabilistic rules out itself, as he points out. But we'll wait till we get to it. So, I mean, the title's not exactly right. Again, like usual.
So, I noticed the other day, now, let me get on the record first. I fully agree with inmendham that you are not to become fatalist because of determinism. Because I like to, because it's actually an interesting point.
Okay, well, yeah, you should have just stayed there instead of doing this. I like to, it's an interesting point, because in a sense, I think in your interesting point, you just undid what you just said. Pretty much.
A subtle insight, and it's in the technicality. It's interesting to me to observe it when I'm about to tell it. And that is, you may have several arguments against fatalism, but I just wanted to note that when he makes appeals to the probability of an outcome, there's kind of a flaw in that argument. That is,
yeah, there really isn't. As I've already stated clearly, I don't believe there's any such thing as any real probability. Everything's inevitable, but probability is what you do have when you reduce the amount of information you're given. And it does fit in terms of saying the probability can be, depending on what variables you're eliminating for your perception, the probabilities can hold true. They can be a very accurate way of describing what's going to happen, like a lottery or playing cards or something like that.
In true determinism, there are no probabilities either.
Well, like I said, it doesn't really have anything to do with determinism. It has to do with the fact that, in true cause and effect, you could say, or in true physics, or in something that doesn't have magic in it, or fairies, then you're stuck with causes. And causes aren't probabilistic, they're certain.
Probability is a mathematical construct wherein, for our purposes, we assume that there is a chance, for example, equal chance of the dice.
Right, and again, you would say it's a mathematical construct. I would say the math is a description of the physical construct of cause and effect, and the fact that if all the balls are round and they have a different number on them, the fact is that there's not enough variation between the balls for their odds of, if you go through the permutations, of them ending up doing something called that appears to be random. But again, the math isn't the truth. The math is a description of the relationship or the variable fact that the balls are theoretically identical.
Landing on numbers 1, 2 to 6, you see. But in actual fact, in determinism, there never was an equal chance at that point. When I roll the dice and it lands on number 4, at that time, it was written as not a mystic, but on the disc. It was in our future. It was always going to end up on number 4.
Right. Now, the on the disc statement, again, is another way of metaphoring it, that the truth is being played. So, the fact is, though, you can't just jump on the disc, in a sense. You have to always play through the disc. There's no jumping to some place or conditions in time or space, because that would end up being magic again. So you do have to play through all the causes and all the effects to have the new cause and effect. The new effect, that'll be a cause, and the new cause created by the effect.
It's just that if we collect data within a period of time, it fits the model, because we don't have...
Yes, the key word is model, and so that's what we all got to maybe agree on, is that our brain models reality, and it models it in this simplistic kind of rudimentary form, less detail, a lot less pixels. And so it has to come up with schemes to represent what will happen, and to use up less and less hardware space So it's like computers of the old days where, yes, graphics weren't, you know, a register of individual placement of pixels. It was a mathematical description of a curved line or a straight line, and everything was converted into some sort of smaller amount of information to describe the thing with more information. But that's an important detail. Yes, it's our lack of information that creates illusions like random, chaos, spontaneous. Those are all illusions of our lack of information. Religion, a delusion of ignorance, that's all it is.
The data to calculate that it will land on number 4, it serves as a model of a statistical model that's useful, and that works practically for us. But in actual fact, it didn't have a probability of landing on number 4. It was predestined.
Right. I mean, but that doesn't discount the value of using statistical analysis in the sense that you can understand that pattern exists that causes the effect. That the effects aren't caused by something without pattern. They're caused with something that has pattern built into it, and we can at least understand the pattern or tendency, and therefore understand probability.
So you can't argue against fatalism that way. The way to beat fatalism...
Well, you say you can't. I'm saying that I certainly can argue against it in this fundamental way, that the only reason why we have to have this conversation is because our models are incomplete. And I'm really just arguing with my definition of the correct simplification of the model versus some other idiot's model of the simplification. His silver lining simplification, his God simplification, his singularity simplification, his woo-woo simplification versus my simplification, which is you're a product of a DNA molecule replicating, and that the mechanism of evolution creates an untold amount of horrid suffering, wasted suffering for non-accomplishment, in the sense that what you gain is just creating a need machine that will eventually be tortured and killed. It's not a productive game.
Just to point out that when you understand this inevitability, that the understanding that the choices you have, the weighing you...
Well, I make the deliberate effort in most of my videos to say the decision made by your brain. Your brain doesn't choose, your brain decides. And decisions are a calculation. So I'm trying to get to that very point, that you're using what is a crude ability to see things before they happen. And I've used, I think, perfectly valid analogies of a brick wall is coming, you're driving, the brick wall is heading right for us. I have very good vision, the guy driving has very bad vision. I inform him that there's a brick wall coming, and he turns appropriately and we miss it. Now, that's the reality. It was determined that it'll happen that way, that I'll inform him. It's determined that this is the inevitability, that we miss the brick wall. There was no choice. But you could argue that if I was an imbecile, or if I was not paying attention, or if I just felt like not talking, we would have hit the brick wall. I was a vital player in the script in terms of the brick wall not being encountered.
Do is only an apparent choice, an apparent fictitious weighing.
Well, again, so to say that our weighing is fictitious is idiotic. No, it's rudimentary. It's usually happening before the event. I mean, we're not waiting for the fire to create smoke. You know, we're saying if we can see it earlier, let's deal with it earlier. So we're trying to find the thing that we might argue is the avoidable thing, the thing to prevent being our inevitable outcome. From our limited perspective. Like I said, if we had absolute knowledge, then we would know that I'm going to say this, I'm going to do that, everybody would know everything everybody's going to do, and so we'd say everything's fine. Because we all know we're going to read our script. But when we can't see the script ahead of time, then yeah, we have to read it as we go. As it's new information. It's not old information. So it's always going to be surprising when we find out, oh, I'm important. I need to tell the drunk to stop drinking, or I need to do this, or I'm necessary somewhere in this. Yeah, that's how it turns out. Everything you do fucks somebody else's fate every fucking day. That's the game you're in. Every day you fuck with people's lives. Every day. Every minute.
It doesn't help you either way in the decision of whether to continue to regard that fictitiousness or not. Maybe those words, it doesn't help you in trying to decide whether to get out of bed tonight or not.
Of course it does. Like I said, if you see out the window that it's raining and your plan for the day was to work outside doing gardening or something, then your information has informed you. Your prejudgment of the day, me in the rain, me wait till tomorrow, gives you information about how vital it is that you get out of bed. So this is where you just turn the argument upside down and pretended that although we have limited knowledge, we do have knowledge. It's not fictitious knowledge. It's actual information. If I look outside, I can see whether it's raining or the sun's out, and it's a valid piece of information. It's not a lie. It's not fictitious. And it will inform a decision.
You can jump out of bed and say, it's deterministic, let's go get them. Or you can lie in bed and say it's deterministic, what the fuck?
Yeah, we don't do either one of those things. You evaluate the risks of the day. You say, how do I feel? Does my back hurt? I mean, there's lots of that. It's just silly to say, I wake up and I have no clue. No, you have lots of clues. You have lots of ambitions. You have lots of things happening inside of you and your own disposition. So this isn't just some, I don't know what to do. No, you of course have all kinds of competing what to do's, and you have all kinds of stuff going on. So this was a gross oversimplification of what's called decision making. And again, the only flaw in our decision is the fact that we don't have complete knowledge. And with incomplete knowledge, we have to take it as it comes. We can't be certain of our decisions. But that doesn't break determinism. And it certainly doesn't make anything futile. Because the truth is, if I tell the guy the brick wall's coming, or I don't tell the guy the brick wall's coming, those two outcomes are different. That is a fact.
Right. It doesn't actually bear on the question of the apparent ride of your life.
Well, of course it bears on it. So I don't understand how you can even say that. Of course it bears on it. Whether you do or do not will bear on everything that happens in the future.
That's my escape of fatalism.
No, I think the escape of fatalism is just to keep pointing out that there's two different circumstances. I stick this in your eye or I don't stick this into your eye. Those two worlds are different. There, end of fatalism.
So, inmendham frames it from time to time that, well, if I rub up against you, it's more probable that this will happen, but that's not true.
So how can you say something like that? So I tell the guy that the brick wall's coming, you don't think it's now more probable that he turns the wheel. I say it's not only more probable, he does it 100% of the time. 100% of the time. You know, unless we change some other circumstance and make him retarded. No, he's not retarded. He's perfectly sensible and he doesn't want to die. I've just informed him of something that he was not going to misinterpret. He heard what I said. There's a brick wall coming. And yes, every single time, he's going to turn the wheel.
That's ultimately it. Your rubbing up will either change the world or it won't.
Yeah, well, who's arguing otherwise? So again, where did I, straw man maker, where did I in some video imply it works both ways? No, of course it's going to change the outcome in the sense that of the probabilities of the imaginable outcomes. Okay, let's not call them probable, or let's not indicate any likelihoods. Let's just say these are possible outcomes dependent on the variable of your interaction. And depending on which one of the variables of interaction you create, the outcome will be different. There. No disagreement there, I don't think.
It will change one or two people, perhaps, but not the one. They don't rub on to other people and change one or two people, and it doesn't escalate into a change of the world, or it doesn't. We don't know, because we can't see the future.
Right, and so who are you arguing with now? Again, who argued some other circumstance, like there's any certainty at all? If I had the certain plan, I would be implementing it right now with great confidence and feeling just fine. Even though things look dismal, I would know that the certain plan is going to work. No, I don't have any certainty. I have to keep judging myself and say, am I doing it wrong? Because I don't really, I don't have enough indication that I've got the right plan.
But the future is written. And I think my argument stands better for participating in it.
And your argument is what? Let's just pretend we have free will. That's a silly thing to do. It's retarded. It's fundamentally anti-intelligent. Let's understand that we can know a lot. There's a ton of information. We can know a hell of a lot about what's likely to happen. We can understand a huge amount about human psychology, just about honest communication and how vital that is. Where's the complexity here? Come on, it's just bullshit to sit there and bail and not accept the fact that yes, we have limited knowledge, but we can do a lot with that limited knowledge. We can know a lot. We can know certainly that it's probably not a good idea to let a drunk drive. We can know that!
As if we have free will. And the fact that we don't, it's just a technical curiosity.
Yeah, well, it's, in my opinion, fact one. It's one of the biggest of the facts you can acquire is knowledge of the fact that you're a byproduct and that you are a machine. You're running programs. You're running what the world made you into. And that's it. It is a big important thing to know, because it gives you the possibility of saying, well, maybe there are elements of my psychology and my philosophy that have been tainted by a bias and a bigotry and a prejudice of a circumstance, and that now I can analyze them further, and I might find out that no, I'm just being an ignorant asshole on that subject or some kind of bullshit like that. That's the power it gives you. So I'd say, yeah, pretending is a bad idea. I guess that's it. Alright, so now we'll do a little bit of Anacontavat, I guess. Fundamental philosophical. Oh yeah, this is a Ken Wheeler video. It's the stupidest video ever. But I don't know if I want to get around to doing a response. But man, sometimes he just clunkers all over the place. And this idea that sensor size, fundamental photographic principle, additive versus multiplicative increase in sensor size. It's just additive. There's no, he calls it exponential change, because you make it, because you go from a 3 megapixel to a 5 megapixel. He's saying it's exponential. No, it's not. Nothing magic there. He just wants to pretend it is because he wants to justify spending $17,000 for a camera. Insane fuckers. Anyway, Anaconda, suffering and power. No, this one. Yeah, this is the one we want. Yeah, I'll probably have to turn the volume way down.
Adler just did a video on fatalism and determinism and how he avoids fatalism. Well, I would say if you've avoided fatalism, you've avoided determinism of the hard nature, like hard determinism.
Right, so he's basically saying he believes in fatalism and you can't stop fatalism and blah, 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 blah in some kind of theoretical sense. So in the sense that if we did have complete knowledge, that would be true. But the fact is we don't have complete knowledge of circumstances, so we can't know the right answer ahead of time. So we can't be fatalistic about outcomes because we can't know them ahead of time. So it's just silly for us to presume fatalism in any sense because there's absolutely nothing we can use it for. Again, I'll use the analogy. If everybody thought World War II was just going to get won and nobody had to go and fight it, then it wouldn't have been won.
Allow me to illustrate. I'll give you the illustration that I gave Heithel today. It's kind of colorful. Let's say I was to get hit in the face with a shovel. That ought to please a few people, but...
Yes, if it was a significant enough blow, it would please me, I have to admit. Because you are, a belligerently ignorant, an obnoxious troll of the internet, in a sense. Troll of philosophy. Philosophy troll. Alright, so anyway, so he's going to use this analogy to now basically say, my thoughts are not deterministic. And you can't let your thoughts escape from the physical universe. Your thinking process is just as mechanical as the Earth going around the sun. It's just as mechanical.
You know, somebody just hits me in the face or ties me up and says, I'm going to hit you in the face with this spade, this garden spade. And I'm tied up and I'm looking at it.
Okay, so again he's saying, so he's changing the reality. So you see how subtle he did that. He took a world where we have choices, and now he's taken away choice. And so now the only thing left is how he perceives the shovel in the face. So it's like if you know something's going to happen versus something surprises you, your reaction is different. You jump into water on purpose or somebody pushes you into water that you weren't expecting. Your reaction is different. Very different. And that's not a surprise. But that doesn't mean determinism's broken. That doesn't mean you've escaped it. It just means that you've changed the variables. And so obviously in most circumstances one could argue that somebody's holding a spade from behind you and they're ready to whap you in the head, and somebody in front of you says, there's somebody going to hit with your shovel. And then you duck, and you don't get hit in the head with a shovel.
Well, here it comes. There's nothing I can do about it. That's going to happen. So...
yeah, we all have those sitting in front of us, right? So you can make this spade in the face argument, but frankly, we're all going to get that. We're all going to get killed. And we don't know how we're going to get killed. And so maybe you can sit there and say, well, you have enough knowledge about being killed that you're perfectly, oh, I don't care, whenever, however, doesn't matter to me how I die. Well, I think most rational people would say, yeah, they'd like to have resolution on that subject. And they'd like to be able to know if there's something they can do now to, pay in advance to make sure the bed they die on is soft enough. And that kind of thing. That they could do something now to prevent the worst from being the inevitable.
I just let it happen. Boom, right in the face. Now, I place value on that. Did I like the spade to the face, or did I dislike?
Well, obviously nobody even bothers with doing that, right? Nobody asked themselves that question. Nobody in the history of mankind who have actually been hit in the face with a spade have ever sat there and said, did I enjoy that experience? They just don't bother doing that. They're a little bit too distracted by actually not enjoying the experience.
The spade to the face. Was that a good thing that happened to me? Was that a bad thing that happened to me?
No, they might ask, did the bone in my nose, the cartilage in my nose just shoot into my brain? Am I hemorrhaging fatally? Am I going to die? No, those are the kind of questions they'll ask.
Etc., etc., etc. You can use this example for every...
It's a stupid example, because it really has nothing to do with the subject of determinism or the fact that our brain collects information and attempts to predict the future, and that we can't do that perfectly, and that's why everything we do is important.
Experience every outcome. I would argue that doing so actually changes the outcome, even though...
Yes, and he's saying, look, your attitude changes the outcome. That's exactly what I'm saying. That your attitude of being fatalistic, or, sitting on the couch during World War II because you think it doesn't matter. Your attitude that my interactions in the world don't matter. It doesn't matter how I interact with Handakantavad, because no matter how I interact, he's going to say stupid stuff. There's no way I can interact with him where he'll actually say something intelligent and reasonable. Well, of course there is. And I'm aware of that. And so in making my decision about what I'm going to say, I'm going to try sometimes to say things that might appeal to him, that might get to him, that might create a little worm that wiggles in his brain of an idea that might say, no, I've got to rethink that. That's a bad theme. That's our reality.
Physically, the outcome has not been changed. The spin, the value that you put...
The spin is a physical reality. So again, you're this idea that you're somehow have a choice about spinning, a choice. No, the choice will be made by your understanding. If somebody, even having this conversation ahead of time, if you have a whole conversation about getting hit in the face with a spade before, 2 hours before you get hit with in the face with a spade, then yes, your reaction is going to be different because you're ready for it, so to speak. It's just like having the dreams that happen, and some of them prepare you for the reality that happens. That's part of the determinism. Your thought process is no more undetermined than every other event in the universe. I mean, it is controlled by cause and effect. If you learn how to play the piano, then you play the piano. If you studied some physics, then you can use words like acceleration and velocity and know what they mean.
On that event, your experience of it and your assessment of that experience, your interpretation of that experience changes the outcome.
Okay, so again, what he's saying is that you can have ahead of time a notion of reaction, and then you can tell yourself, I will react a certain way. So like you can go to a party and you know somebody you hate's there, and you can say ahead of time, don't let them start something. Let them just do their trolling and don't pay any attention, don't make any scenes, fuck it. Okay, let them wear themselves out. I'm not going to be reactive. And it'll work. It'll change what will happen. The cops won't have to show up, all that bullshit won't take place, blah, 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 blah. Okay? And other times you'll be so full of passion you just won't be able to do that. But the point is those are decisions going to be made way ahead of the actual event. Those attitudes have to already be in place. At the moment of the event, you don't get the opportunity to say, oh, wait a minute, I'm an insightful, philosophical type, and I understand that I can do a lot of things with my psychological reactions, and I will choose not to react to this shovel in the face in any kind of, a hysterical way. No, that's not going to happen spontaneously at the moment of impact. That's going to happen before it happens.
Even though the events are absolutely identical in both possible.
They're not absolutely identical in all. No, see, this is where he says something that's just such a false premise. Your mindset is a mindset. That you can't change the mindset and say, look, they're identical. Mindset A, mindset B, identical mindsets. I haven't changed anything. They have completely different mindsets, but I haven't changed anything. You can't say that. Error.
Well, scenarios, if you can even speak of possible scenarios here.
Of course you can talk of possible scenarios in the sense we can imagine outcomes. And we can do it rather reliably. We know the deck of cards has 2s and 4s and 8s and 10s and kings and queens and jacks in them, and we can know that when you pull the card there can be change. The same card ain't going to keep coming up.
I get hit in the face with a shovel. I've just been hit in the face with a shovel. That's inevitable, that's necessity, that's determined, whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't want any of those words, frankly. Determine's okay, but that whole necessity thing doesn't mean anything. There's no necessity. It's just a silly word. in terms of it has to be necessary to a condition. If you want to have an efficient engine, it's necessary that it have a catalytic converter and this and this and this, and well, that's more for emissions. But efficiency in terms of its pollution, let's say. Then there's certain hardware that has to be installed on the car. It's necessary to the condition. But there's no such thing as necessary and absolute. It's like having a free and absolute. There's no free without the necessary condition of confinement first, or as a possibility. There is no necessity as a vague concept. So he's just freeing you. He's just using this psychobabble language. So to take the word like necessary and pull it out of context and make it a magic word, like the way people do with free. They turn free into a magic word. Free, 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 free. No, there's no free.
The spin I put on that event, even between my own ears, even between me and myself.
Again, me and yourself is one brain, and it's programmed by previous brain conditions and brain states. You will not magically come to this realization that, oh, I'm above shovel in the face. I'm above reacting.
Influence is the outcome, even if the outcome is rigidly determined.
And your thoughts are rigidly determined is part of the argument about determinism. That's why they talk about free will as an opposition to determinism, is they're implying that thoughts aren't determined, that they're free. See? They're not. That's the argument. So again, he has 3-card Monty'd. He has fooled you. He's trying to play a fake, it's an end run, quarterback sneak. He's taken the ball and disguised it as this new subject. No. The ball is determinism. Determinism claims it has control over your thoughts as well as the physical stuff that happens in the environment around you. It doesn't claim something else. Determinism, as by definition, doesn't say we're not talking about your will or your mindset or whether you can play the piano or not. Of course we're talking about those things.
There's more to an outcome than falling dominoes.
Says you. So he used this fake sneak now to sneak this bullshit in here that, see, there's part of the universe isn't cause and effect. Part of the universe isn't, I can play the piano without practicing or knowing music or doing any of that. I can do it really well because I just say I want to. My brain all of a sudden wants, and it wants with proficiency. It knows how to do it too. And when the shovel hits me in the face, I'll just spontaneously say, I don't care. I'll spontaneously have pretended I watched an Anaconda video, even though I didn't. And I'll spontaneously think, oh yeah, I don't care about pain.
There's value to an outcome. Where does value come from?
Well, again, value comes from another. It's a concept, and it's not material, but it's real in the sense that things have something called qualities, and some of those qualities can be invisible qualities. They're qualities of function, and so like the function of being an efficient car versus an inefficient car, it's not a visible thing in like some kind of red flag pops up automatically to signify the configuration that's not good. It has to be analyzed to understand the qualitative difference. But the qualitative difference exists as a function, and that's where value comes from. We can understand it because we're personally sentient. We know feeling like shit sucks, and therefore value exists because I just made the word sucks. And once I do that, I know what a negative is. So anyway, we've already been there and done that. But so both of these two just bad wordplay, in my opinion. So trouble. as the mystic would say. There's trouble in these videos. He probably liked both of those. But lots of trouble with that verbiage. Okay, so, till next time.